our social skills and time management completely gone. I was relieved, because that drive was undeniably the worst event in human history. It was time for things to get back to normal, except for me, they didn't. Over the course of the pandemic, I played a monumental amount of Minecraft, and befriended quite a few people doing so. These friendships never lasted long. That was until I met Rufus. Rufus was a southern teenager, a couple years older than me, that I had met through another online friend. He collected coins, seemed to never sleep, and got into all kinds of sitcom-worthy shenanigans. We immediately hit it off. Every day after school, I would hop on Discord and call with Rufus, and we'd play survival Minecraft, or Bed Wars, or for some reason off-brand Monopoly. I would laugh at his most recent coin-related exploits. Everything was great. So Rufus seems like a chill, weird, but overall pretty chill guy, right? Right? Wrong. Rufus was massively homophobic and racist, and to top it all off, a bit misogynistic. Let me give you an example. I introduced Rufus to one of my friends, who we're going to call Richard. Now here's the thing. Richard was gay, and Rufus wasn't exactly the most politically correct individual. Rufus, unaware of Richard's sexuality, called him the F-slur. Richard soon after left the call, and messaged me, telling me how uncomfortable Rufus had made him feel. When I told Rufus, instead of apologizing, he doubled down, saying that Richard was just being sensitive, and that he had blocked him, which he hadn't, so he couldn't apologize anyway. He never ended up apologizing. Richard wasn't my only friend who expressed their dislike after meeting Rufus. Early on in our friendship, I introduced Rufus to my friend Dylan. Initially, they got along really well. Dylan joined us in our almost nightly calls. Then something happened. They got to know each other a little too well. Our once stupid conversation topics turned to political arguments. Me and Dylan being middle schoolers, and Rufus constantly being a night behind sleep, ensured not a single good point was ever made. Dylan soon stopped calling with us. He also asked me to cut ties with Rufus, if only I listened. I wrote off Dylan's disdain for Rufus as him just being sensitive. None of the friends I'd introduced to him so far stuck. And he really wanted more people to play Monopoly with. So I turned to my school. My friends from PGMS weren't my close friends. The friends from PGMS I introduced Rufus were my close friends. They were my other friends. I'd introduced two of them to him. Matt and, let's go with Jack. I unknowingly had made the worst decision of my entire life. I still regretted my actions, but Pandora's box was open. Mac and Jack introduced other people from my school to Rufus. At first, things were fine, but then just like with Dylan, they got to know Rufus a little too well. Unlike Dylan, they fell in love with him. I probably should have noticed that Rufus wasn't exactly a great guy. Well, yes, he did say slurs, and yes, he did make the occasional derogatory comment towards a member of the LGBT community. I wrote it off as him just being edgy. Rufus, after I introduced him to my friends, was a completely different beast. It wasn't the audacity of what he said, but the conviction with which he said it. My friends, who I had also assumed were just a bit edgy, had each blossomed, like some homophobic variety flower. Things probably would have gone on for quite some while. Things probably would have gone on like this for quite some while, if one thing hadn't happened. Donald Trump ran for president in 2024. I was never too angry in regards to the matter. I thought that I didn't care, but that I thought someone's beliefs shouldn't define them. Rufus thought otherwise. He assumed I disagreed with him on everything, and then would then shame me for it, even if I didn't. I soon began to resent Rufus, not because of his beliefs, but because of how viciously he attacked mine and others. After one especially vicious one night I blocked him. The day after I blocked Rufus, the sky was overcast. After I was dropped off at school, I sat down at one of the tables. Soon, my friends were swarming me. Each one of them had something different and equally hurtful to say to me. One yelled at me, another simply asked me why. Yet another said Rufus was subtly referencing suicide. I was drowning, not because I was confused, but because I realized the truth. I was trapped. That was easily the most miserable day of my entire life. So I unblocked Rufus, and our friendship continued. Nothing really changed after I unblocked him. He still continued to insult me. There was one instance after the first attempted assassination that really shook me. Rufus sent me an image of one of the bystanders who had been shot by the attempted assassin. He lay on the ground, a hole in his head, covered in blood, Secret Service members standing over him. Along with the image, there was a message. Teach your guy to shoot better next time. I, of course, had never mentioned political assassination to Rufus, and adamantly told him I was against it afterward. Let me remind you, I was 14 at the time, and he was 17. Just as I was about to reach a new layer of misery, something magical happened. I started my freshman year at York. Rufus had become somewhat of a legend at PG, and all my friends there knew of it. They began to question my friendship with him, when the goofy stories about late-night pasta and coins turned to me recounting Rufus's most recent homophobic belief. But that was just it, questions. My friends at York were adamant. I needed to block Rufus. I was reluctant at first. We'd been getting along pretty well, and I thought things were going to be fine. I was soon proven wrong when he went on a campaign of calling me a narcissist. I was wary of blocking Rufus outright, so I fought fire with fire. I disagreed with him on everything, whether I believed what I was saying or not. After one especially vicious argument, we said our goodbyes, and then he blocked me. Rufus has become somewhat of a caricature within my friend group. Whenever one of us mentions a car crash, the others will ask in unison, Rufus. Canonically, Rufus is a microscopic organism that runs people over in his pickup truck, driving many times the speed of light. This character is obviously ridiculous. But are they more ridiculous than someone who hates others based on their sexuality? More ridiculous than someone who hates others based on their religious beliefs or thinks less of them because of the color of their skin? More ridiculous than someone who prioritizes not even their beliefs, but their pride of one of their closest friends? I mean, yeah, how would he reach the pedals using microscopic? But that second character, that's the real Rufus. That's the Rufus I was friends with for over 3 years. And for the sake of the world, I hope he changes. Wait, there's more. So, earlier this year, I was hanging out with some friends. One of them, who had Rufus' number, jokingly suggested calling him. And before I could object, we were on FaceTime with the man himself. Rufus made a bold entrance by saying the N-word. A year earlier, he never would have done such a thing. It was the one line he would never cross. I was in shock, and the call didn't last very long. But I was able to glean that Rufus had joined the fraternity. I guess he hadn't changed. There's been one thing conspicuously absent from this personal oration, the personal part. I've mainly talked about Rufus so far, but he's only part of the story. To put it simply, I was an a-hole in middle school. And it's not like I did anything significantly hurtful. I was just a generally unpleasant person to be around. One time in 8th grade, a girl asked me how my day was going. I just told her to F off. It's not like I had anything against her. That's just how I was. When Dylan learned Rufus hadn't changed, he wasn't surprised, but I was. I'd hoped for so long that he would see the errors in his ways and correct them. But he's not the only one I hope would change. With help from friends like Dylan, I spent the entirety last year trying to change myself for the better. Looking back, I think it's clear that I have. As Mr. R has so often reminded me, we're all works in progress. Thank you.